Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me for this morning's session, Media and PR for Small Business. My name is Kristy Bailey. I am an advisor with Business Station as part of the ASBAS program, and hence why I'm delivering this workshop, but also managing director of 180 Marketing, which is a marketing company that focuses on strategic development or strategic marketing plans for small businesses. So a lot of what we're going through today is going to be based on my day-to-day sort of work and real life experience. So I would encourage you to be as interactive with the webinar as possible. If you have any questions whatsoever, please use the Q&A functionality. Just type in a question there and I'll answer them as we go. I've got my eye on that. So please feel free to drop any questions in there. All right, so what we're going to cover today, we are going to first of all talk about the importance of PR for small business. We're going to define what media and PR is and potentially what the difference between the two terms is. We'll talk about how you can build media relations as a small business owner. We'll talk about also generating publicity as a result of building the media relations or relationships with the media. We'll talk a little bit about working with influencers and how that can potentially offer some significant exposure for your business. Following through with that, I will talk about the customer journey and then finally social media and your overall PR strategy. So we do have a lot to get through, but hopefully, today will flow quite well and you can pick up on areas that you can really expand on your own PR within your business. All right, so getting into it, first of all, media. Well, essentially, media is a means of mass communication. So information is delivered to the public through newspapers, through magazines, television, obviously radio, plus a number of different ways online. When you think of the term media, most people think traditional media or news outlets, but it's really not the case anymore. Media is now so much more, and there are an unbelievable number of media outlets that each individual consumer will experience on a daily basis. There's social media, there's influential bloggers, there's YouTube influencers, there's other social media influencers, online publications, podcasts. There's a number of different things, and these can really be harnessed to help get publicity for your business. In a traditional sense, journalists and reporters were the people that write or present the news and feature stories, and editors then control the final content. But what we know about media these days is that editors don't really control the final content. Everyone, and when I say everyone, I mean consumers, really control content at a much greater level than they ever have before. So what you see here is called the peso model. This is a media model strategy. So peso is an acronym that stands for paid, earned, shared, and owned. It's really important that you understand what you're doing in media and PR and marketing and where it fits into this particular model, because you really have to use a variety of strategies across different mediums. In the past, paid media was the primary focus of advertising and earned media was the primary focus of PR, and then shared and owned wasn't really anyone's focus. But today, there's so much crossover that each element has to be a key focus in your business. Now, just to expand on what they are, paid is quite self-explanatory. Paid media is essentially advertising. It could be advertorials, sponsorships, sponsored content, which is content that you pay for. It could include ads on the radio, television, print. Paid media also includes your online space as well. So pay-per-click advertising through Google AdWords, social media advertising on Facebook, Instagram, there's sponsored posts, banner ads, that kind of thing. So it's essentially anything that there's a transaction for. Earned is really your news coverage. Earned media is when you've earned the opportunity through these good media relations that we're going to talk all about to appear in some kind of news story. So media will be in the specific publication as press coverage, so not as advertising, but it quite often will appear. So if it's in traditional media, as in offline, it'll quite often also appear online, which will represent an opportunity for you to get backlinks from the news sites to your business, and a range of other online, I guess, benefits that come along with traditional media. Now, because of an association with viral content or the mass market that news coverage sort of generates, earned media has the potential to reach so many more consumers than your paid or your owned media. And as we'll talk about it, in that earned space, it's generally free. Shared is social media. So shared media is user-generated content. So it's not created by you as such. It could be created by your customers, your people, or the public, but it is constantly evolving. So what happens here in the shared space is largely a result of your marketing and your customer service, so a combination of the two. And what you need to keep in mind in the shared space is that you really can't afford any negative relations with your customers at any stage of their purchase cycle, because that's where it comes out in your shared media space. On the flip side of that, fantastic customer service and a fantastic customer experience will relate in really positive outcomes in the shared space as well. Now, your owned assets, think about your website, or content that you've created. So anything that you have full control over. I mentioned your website, it could be a blog, you could have written an ebook, it could be presentations that you've developed that's online. So to determine if it's owned, basically you would fully control the content and the distribution of that content. So if you can add to it, if you can edit it, if you can delete the content, then you probably own it. So each category in this peso model is a lot more effective when it's used in conjunction with the other categories than it is when it's in isolation. So we will refer back to the peso model, but it's really important to keep this in mind and to ensure that you're doing everything you can in each aspect of this model and media to get full reach. So start having a think in each of these areas. Are you doing anything at the moment? And if not, what can you be doing? And obviously we're going to talk about each of them, but as we go, it would really be helpful to start generating those thoughts for your business specifically. All right, then we've got PR. So PR, or public relations, is a strategic communication process. And through that process, you build mutually beneficial relationships between organizations, so your company, and the public. So in simplified terms, I believe that PR is having a good strategy plus amazing storytelling, so a combination of the two. As a small business, you might not think that you're in the business of or in the need of public relations, but you absolutely are. Thinking back to that peso model, this is really your earned and your shared component. So are you doing anything in either of those areas at the moment? I believe that public relations is crucial to the success of every business, no matter how big or small you are. The main difference is that with a small business, you're generally more budget conscious and you might not have the luxury of hiring a PR firm to be able to do your PR for you. So you do have to take a more DIY approach and really master your own public relations. All right, just a quick comparison of how things have changed and a couple of concepts to really consider here. I think it's really interesting to notice or to take note of how the media space has evolved. Previously, brands controlled the message. Publicists were spin doctors, so publicists would get that message that a brand wanted to convey to the public. They would turn it into an exciting story. Through their amazing media relations, they would generate media coverage, and generally in traditional media outlets, and customers were just simply really passive receptors. We saw what we saw in the newspaper, on television, and we believed that. There was no two-way sort of conversation going on. Whereas now everyone owns the message. Your customers are more empowered than they ever were before. You have to keep in mind that there are now also a lot of different simultaneous communications, and traditional media are really just one outlet for customers. So yeah, we use the word publicist then because publicists produce transactions, so to speak. So a specific result, like an article or coverage on a television show, whereas in reality now PR pros are there to build relationships that will get you positive results across all forms of media. And I say PR pros, but like I said, from a small business perspective, we very much have to take a DIY approach and become that PR pro yourself. So hopefully that makes sense. But the key message here is really that customers are more empowered than ever before. So they're not sitting there just waiting for our messages. They are very much a part of building our brand message. All right, so to get publicity, you have to have great media relations, and you have to build those media relations. So building relationships with the media is so important because journalists really enjoy dealing with people that can assist them in their work or make their job easier. So today, the media is so fast-paced that journalists just don't have the time to research stories for themselves or go out hunting for stories. So if you can provide them with an easy story, then it's going to be a win for them because you're helping them do their job. And obviously, it's going to be a win for you because hopefully you'll get publicity as a result. But in order to build these media relations, it's really important to develop an understanding of the difference between different media outlets. So knowing what a news outlet or what news media is, and then that in comparison to feature journalists. Then there's consumer and trade journalists. So thinking about who the journalist or the publication is speaking to, whether it's trade partners or the end consumer. So keep in mind that all these outlets will be looking for stories that appeal to their specific audience. So you have to know who their audience is. So a news editor will look for straightforward news stories. So that could be new information about something that has or something that will happen. A features editor, on the other hand, will be more interested in an in-depth story that's topic specific. Consumer media will look for stories that appeal to the public because they're talking direct to the consumer. And then trade media will be interested in material that is of interest to the industry or the trade that their publication goes out to. So more of a B2B type situation. So to build these good media relations, first of all, you have to understand that you have to have a good news sense, or you have to develop a news sense. So you have to know what information each outlet presents, first of all, and what types of items might be of interest to them. So you need to determine who their audience is, it could be their listeners, it could be their readers. Think about that by looking at their past articles. You can really also determine what they like to write about and what is potentially, the kind of topics that suit that particular news outlet. The next thing is you need to consider lead times. So you need to know these lead times. You need to work out what the deadlines are for the media that you're targeting. So, for example, news items for print, radio, and TV will have shorter lead times. So you might have the information today and it will appear quickly tomorrow, or even the same day, while feature articles tend to be a lot more planned out and well in advance. That could be 3 to 6 months of lead time there to get coverage in a particular feature. So these lead times are really important. Knowing specific people really helps. So getting the names of the journalists and their contact details, finding out how they best like to receive media releases or information, and keep this list up to date so that you've always got the relevant information on hand. In terms of knowing the specific people, it can be hard to determine who they are. If you're thinking about traditional media or even anything online, there's generally the journalist is credited for a particular article. LinkedIn is a great place to start to try and find more information on specific people and names that names of specific people, that represent different outlets. And this could be online or offline. And yeah, just spending that time to develop your own database is really important. Once you do get in contact with them and start liaising with them, it's so important to be accurate. So always provide information that is correct and is on time. So if you're the contact on a media release, as an example, and they try to get hold of you to get more information, make sure that you're extremely responsive to that. So be on time in terms of getting back to them or getting information to them. In terms of the accuracy of information, journalists don't often have time to fact check. So they're very much relying on the information that they're getting that's coming to hand as being correct. So it's really important that you get that right as well. The other top tip that I have to build media relations is to invite them to see or experience your product or service if and when that's appropriate. So you might be doing a product launch, you might have a new service that you're offering, so there could be an event that surrounds that, or you might just want to invite them to experience your product or service in exchange for some coverage, or as part of trying to gain that coverage. I think it's really important. Journalists, sometimes they are time poor, so that can be a concern, but A lot of the time, if you do get them to experience your product or service, they're able to write about it a lot better. So definitely keep that in mind. If it's appropriate for your business, that'll be really dependent on what your business is, and what product or service it is that you're offering. But if it's appropriate, it can be a really good way to build strong media relations. Now, I would also say get to know local media. So make an effort to get to know the local media in your area. So that could be community newspapers. It could be, if you're regional, it could be other local media, whether it be radio or television stations. I find that local media and the smaller outlets are always really hungry for news. So think about if you're operating in a particular community, obviously what you're doing is going to be relevant to a community newspaper, as an example. They also have web pages, they have Facebook pages, so it will go to an online platform as well, or there might be someone else locally, some other kind of media outlet, online or offline, that is local, that's also looking for content. So keep that in mind. I think that's a really quick and easy win a lot of the time from a media relations perspective. Also make regular contact with them. So once you've developed this database, you know exactly who it is that you're talking to, you've determined that they're right for your business, so your audiences match, make sure you make regular contact. Not too often to annoy them, of course, but that regular contact, just so that you stay front of mind and they know they can reach out to you if they've got questions, and you can provide them information if you've got something newsworthy as well. So that's building media relations to generate publicity. What you've got to keep in mind is that publicity is just a tactic. So public relations itself requires a really planned strategy, and it can take time, but publicity is a great way to really get into that earned space. So to expand on publicity, and that does sit in the earned space, publicity is all about spreading the word about your business through non-advertising channels and earning that media coverage. So through the good media relations that we've just discussed, you know who the media are, you know how to maintain a good relationship with them, but you still need to keep in mind that they are going to want something that's newsworthy, that's on time or timely, as in relevant to the time that it's going to be published. It would have to be something that's different or unique, or potentially have a human interest element. You would absolutely need to use amazing visuals, so have imagery that goes along with your story, so that it's something that they can actually publish, something that they can report on that perks the interest of their readers, viewers, or listeners is going to work really well. So with that, and I probably should have expanded on that earlier, when you're building media relations, it's so important that you know exactly who your target audience is, and therefore who your the outlets are that you are going to approach. So just in that sense, if your demographic or your key target market is seniors, for example, a seniors magazine will be a fantastic starting point, because the information that you're producing is going to be 100% relevant to their audience, as opposed to a health and wellness magazine. So not all media coverage is going to do well for you. If you're not talking to the same audience, it's going to be a complete waste of everybody's time. So it's really important that you understand your audience and the outlet's audience, and then make sure you're approaching the same an outlet that matches your audience. So once you're ready to do that, you can communicate with them in a number of ways. A media release tends to be the most common. So writing a media release, and I will expand shortly just on that and how the structure of a media release should look. Perhaps producing a newsletter that goes out to, you might have a consumer database, but also incorporate your media database into a list that might get a newsletter. In both of those cases, you'll need photos, as I mentioned, so great, strong images and or video that really adds to the content that you're speaking about is going to be helpful. Journalists aren't going to just publish words in most cases, unless it's something, a small article that sits in the, think about, the general news section of the newspaper. Possibly that would sit without visuals, but in 99% of the cases, particularly from a positive PR perspective, there should be some kind of visual that sits alongside it. You can use online news centres to distribute your stories as well. And I'll expand a little bit more on distribution, but you could also can use social media to generate publicity. So making sure that you share your content, that you tag the relevant people in it, and that could be news outlets, it could be individual journalists. Use hashtags. So outlets, journalists, individuals might be scouring through hashtags to find content. There's a range of hashtags for Perth, for Western Australia, and then for different industries and topics as well. So do your research in a social media space and understand, potentially, follow the relevant journalists and outlets to know how they sort of engage as well, and make sure that you are sharing your information with your own social media channels and tagging and hashtagging to get that extra coverage and to get a little bit more reach. All right, so to get to the media, the most common way to generate publicity is by writing a media release, which I mentioned. A media release is a document that you send out to the media. It will detail anything that could be classified as news. So what generally happens is that journalists take the media release, and if they find it interesting, they'll write an article about it. So depending on the journalist and the publication, a lot of the time they'll publish what they read from your media release, and then they may fact check later, or they may not fact check at all. So as you may have seen on social media, a lot of the time it's the public correcting journalists. Now that happens because the news world is so fast paced. They'd rather be first to publish something, even if it's inaccurate, than waste time checking facts and not be first to publish it. So keep that in mind. And that generally comes about more as a breaking news sort of story situation. But you do have to make sure that your media release is 100% accurate and has the information in it that you would want to see published, because you may not get a call from a journalist to ask more information. They may purely publish what you've written. So if you've got something newsworthy and someone picks it up, the best thing about it, the coverage that you're going to get, or the promotion that your business gets as a result, is that it would be free. So let's say it's a newspaper or magazine publication. They'll also have a website and social media channels. So your story will most likely be covered in more than just print. So you'll obviously get free marketing through the media avenue that publishes your release. Via their website, you'll probably get a link back to your website, or your name will appear in it, so it will be searched by consumers that are reading the article. So that will most likely result in increased traffic to your website. In terms of the link from their media article back to your website, that also represents a great opportunity to build your SEO, so your search engine optimization. But in general, getting publicity is a fantastic way to build your brand. It also gives you credibility within the industry or within the consumer base that you're sort of focusing on. And so keep that in mind. There's lots of benefits to getting that publicity. You do have to remember, though, it is very competitive. So you have to make sure that your media release is the one that grabs the attention of journalists. So the best media releases are written in this inverted pyramid format that you see on your screen. So starting, first of all, you would have a headline, which I haven't popped on there, but a headline's generally about 5 words, and it has to be extremely catchy for the journalist to want to read more. Following that, you'd have the lead. So the lead would start with the most newsworthy information. So the who, what, where, when, and why. And this will really be a hook to draw the reader in, which was generally the media outlet, to get them to want to read more. Following from there, you would have the body of the media release, and that'll be more important details and the main argument or the main statement that you're trying to make. You would have evidence to back up what you're saying. So we don't want to put in here any sweeping statements. So we're the best, the best business in Western Australia has just launched a new product. You want to back anything you say up with evidence or with a quote. So quotes are fantastic. Quotes should come from a third party, or first of all, your media release should be written in third person. So that quote is obviously going to come from someone that's authoritative to the situation that you're writing about. So let's say that you're a burger place and you've launched arguably Western Australia's best burger. You might have a food critic that then provides a quote to say they have never seen a burger, they'll never tasted a burger so amazing, and that's giving that authoritative figure, providing evidence to back up what you've said. Now, it's really important when you're getting quotes that you absolutely seek that quote from someone and have their approval to publish it. The quote could also, if you're the owner or the director of the business, the quote could in fact even be from yourself. So let's say in the case of the burger, you might say that we have never had a burger that's been so popular, so tasty, so large, whatever that might be. And that is a statement by the owner of, you know, Best Burgers, WA, or whatever that might be. So you can provide your own quote in a media release. So as long as it backs up the story, a third person, someone authoritative, someone well-known is fantastic. But failing that, you can always make a quote yourself. The tail is the final part. So the tail is where you've got any extra related information, a bit of background, perhaps on the company. So established 5 years ago, UWA's Best Burgers has served customers for 20 years, or, you know, for whatever the statement is, or whatever the background or the extra information is. Pop that in there. At the very end, you would also have a media contact. So that media contact would be someone that can answer any journalist questions about the media release that you've written, or about the business, or about the situation. It's really important that that person knows that they're the media contact, of course, and knows that they may get calls from the media. But it's also really important that that person is very responsive. So if the media calls, they need to be answering that phone and answering the questions straight away. So if the person that you put on there is not overly contactable, you know, in terms of they're always in meetings or they're traveling the next day and their phone will be switched off, then it's not going to do you any favors if the media try and contact you, and it could actually damage your media relations. So that's really important, whoever the contact person is in that sense. So that's writing a media release. They can be difficult in terms of, if you're not a writer, it might feel a little bit forced, but just remember, it's not a sales tool. You're not writing it from a marketing perspective where you're trying to sell your business. It's factual information written in this structure, but it has to be attention grabbing. So it has to be succinct, well written, even if you write it and get someone to proofread it, but just make sure that you follow this general structure. So you've got something interesting to say, you've written your media release, now you have to get it out. So to get good reach with your media release, you have to have an excellent database of industry or specific media. And you will have, when we talked about good media relations, you will have developed that database. And if you do, it will give you the opportunity of getting the right exposure. That development of the database takes time, but once you've got it, yeah, it will be absolute, you know, invaluable to you. So as a starting point, I would recommend that you distribute a media release to local newspapers. I would look at local broadcasters, so TV and radio, if it's relevant to you and your story. Definitely look at industry-specific publications. If you're a member of a local chamber of commerce, consider that it would go out in their newsletter, or think of any other relevant membership organisations that you might be a part of. So there could be anything at a national, a state, or even a regional level. A membership that you have, most of them will have newsletters that go out to their entire database. It might not go out to a database of consumers, but if it goes out to a trade database, you're still building credibility and awareness of your business. So that's really important. Make use of the memberships that you've got. You could also seek an even broader distribution through media agencies like the Australian Associated Press, so AAP as an example. Now, a lot of the time that's a paid service to get your media release out to specific journalists, but it could be relevant and it could be worthwhile just depending on what it is that you're saying. So in terms of getting it out and distributing it, it's really important that the media release is addressed to the right person at the outlet that you're approaching. Otherwise, they may never receive it. So you don't want it to go to an unmonitored inbox, for example. If you're not too sure, you can mark it to the attention of the person's title, so food editor or travel editor or whatever it is that you're, whoever it is that you're looking for. But I would really work on that database to get the specific contact. It's absolutely fine to distribute media releases via email, that is no problem at all. It's very widely accepted, but where possible, paste your release into the body of the email rather than adding it as an attachment. It just eliminates a step for whoever's reading it. Make sure that your subject line is your heading. So don't put your subject line as media release from XYZ Proprietary Limited. That's not going to make anyone want to open the email any further. You need to have your subject line as the heading of your actual media release. So that catchy 5 words that's going to get that journalist really interested and want to know more. Your media database, sorry, that's where I was going with that. Your email database, at the time that you're putting that together, or your database of media, you should determine how they like to receive media releases at that point. So if you don't know, and like I said, email is generally fine, but it is good to check when you're building those relationships, and then perhaps even follow up with a phone call once you've sent the media release. Definitely send it with high-res images, not files that are too large that are going to actually block, servers or not get through. But make sure if you're sending them lower res that they can contact you, or let them know that they can contact you for high-res images. So think also about if you're sending to a large database, don't just send them as, one big long email list. Use that BCC functionality or your blind carbon copy. So you don't want a long list of journalists appearing on each recipient's mail or email. So that's very bad etiquette, and it's going to probably get them offside. You also should keep in mind that you may need to tailor your media release for each audience. So let's say you've got one story, but you've got 3 different media outlets that you could send it to, and they have a slightly different audience. So they're, a little bit niche. For example, what will be relevant to the local newspaper might not be relevant for, a feature sort of magazine or something like that, or even a trade publication. So if you have to do a couple of versions of the same media release, that's absolutely fine. Just tweak it a little bit to suit the audience of the outlet that you're appealing to. And that subject line, I just stress that is what's going to get the journalist's interest. So make sure that that's the headline of the actual story. So that's distributing your media release. So just going back to the peso model, publicity is what we've been talking about when it comes to media releases and coverage in publications or and other media outlets. And that's really just about earned media, whereas public relations is about all media. So you earned, shared, owned, and paid. PR literally fits in with each element of that model. So it has to be incorporated into your entire marketing strategy. So now we're going to go on and talk about a few other things. The first thing, influencers. Now, influencers sit in the shared and the paid space. So you might have heard of the term social influencers. It really isn't anything new. They've been around in various forms forever. And if you think about, back in the day, even possibly 100 years ago, people were given incentives or paid to attend events to attract other people to attend those same events. So it's a similar concept. Today, the term influencers is really about people who possess a significant credibility or considerable reach with a target audience. And it really largely revolves around the internet, of course. If you haven't heard of it, influencer marketing is highly popular and it can be really effective. It can also be very cost effective and a great way to generate positive PR. So influencers have the power to affect purchase decisions of consumers or of their audience because of their authority, because of their knowledge, perhaps because of their position, or it could just be because of their relationship with their audience in a following or a particular niche that they actively engage with. So the size of the following depends on the size of the topic and the niche. And the topic experts could be bloggers, they could be YouTubers, they could be podcasters, they could be social media influencers. So it can really, it's a really broad term. They could also be celebrities or just key opinion leaders like journalists. They could also be academics or professional advisors or just industry experts. So essentially, they're people with an above average influence in their particular audience. So in my opinion, social media has really devalued this form of PR because of the number of fakes, or I guess you could say wannabe influencers that tell you that they have a huge number of followers and they want basically something for nothing from you to cover your product or service, or to talk about, to share images of your product or service. So yeah, it has been devalued a little bit, but there are a lot of ways to get through those fakes, I guess. I believe that true influencer marketing should be directed by you. So you approach them as opposed to they approach you. It does involve leveraging influencers in your content marketing as well. So they will obviously pitch and put things out to their audience, but you should also be talking about it on your website, your socials, your blogs. So it can have huge benefits, and it can result in actual sales, increased traffic to your website as well. And a whole range of new followers, potential leads, and yeah, hopefully the end goal is customers. The reason it works is because we trust friends, we trust colleagues, we trust experts more than we trust advertising. So if marketers that appreciate that fact and devote time and resources to creating these true relationships with people that matter to their business, and the influencer will be doing the same. They're creating these true relationships with people that follow them. So it's really important that you choose the right influencer, and that is absolutely the key to success of influencer marketing. The big thing here is that their audience must match yours. So we spoke about that a little bit when it comes to generating PR and making sure that you're only approaching journalists whose media outlet or publication has the same audience as yours, and it's no different for influencer marketing. So if the audience demographics don't match yours, then you're not talking to people that are ever going to be your customers. So I believe there is a key criteria to determine if it'll work for both your company and for the influencer. And that key criteria, first of all, includes the value. So the value to the influencer, I should say, what's in it for the influencer. So they're not going to work for free. So first of all, you need to establish as one of your key criteria, what do they want in exchange for this coverage? Is it money? Is it an experience? So do they want a product or an experience, or some kind of something for free? Do they want a combination of both? You need to make sure that that works for you as a starting point. So if they're saying, yeah, for 10 grand, I can do this, and that's well over your budget, then it's obviously not going to work, and you stop at that point. So that value to the influencer should be one of the first things that you determine. I shouldn't say first things, because I believe, and I did mention it, I've got it in the second point on the side, but audience demographics should be the very first thing. So do they match your specific target market? And I have really expanded on that a couple of times, but there is absolutely no value in getting coverage to, let's say, yes, someone who has 100,000 followers decided to cover your product, but the people that follow that particular influencer are never going to buy your product or service. There is no value in them promoting your product whatsoever. So keep that in mind. Those audience demographics are key. And then obviously how much it's going to cost you, or what the value to the influencer is also key. Now, the reach or the size of their audience is important. Obviously, if they've only got, 100 followers, then you're limited to potentially getting out to 100 or less people. So it is important, but it's not only size that matters. What you really want to look at here is engagement of their audience. So I find that a lot of influencers will come, and I get emails all day, every day for the various companies that I work with, asking for a free product or service in exchange for coverage to their database, or to their 100,000 followers or 50,000 followers or 10,000 followers. And I personally am not that interested in the size of their audience. I would look at a combination of the size. So it has to be enough people, but engagement. Are their audience engaged? Are they truly engaging back with people that are trying to engage with them? So to do that, I would go and look at past posts. So have a look at how many likes they get on a particular post. Likes alone aren't enough. So I would look at comments. I would look at the response to comments as well. So are people on there asking more information about things that they're seeing? And is that influencer then replying to those comments and really engaging? Are they having open conversation with their followers. Shares is also really important as well, because it means that your product information will go out to the influencers' followers, but then if the influencers' followers are sharing the content again, then it's going out to their friends and their followers as well. So I would definitely be looking at engagement as a really key KPI of how the influencer engages with their audience. So have a look at that. There has to be true and genuine conversation and engagement, two-way engagement on here. So the influencer talking back to them as much as they're talking to the influencer. Also have a look at the quality of their writing style, their photography. Does it match your target market? Again, so the way they write, the types of images they use, does it match who you're talking to? So that's really important as well. And I have had a case of this recently where I had someone approach me for a product that I work with, and they wanted to experience the product for free in exchange to going out to their database. I had a look at their followers. There was true engagement there. They had a decent number of followers. I then looked at their type of imagery and it wasn't suitable to our target market. So our target market for this particular product was an over 60s sort of product, but all the images they used were young people on the beach in bikinis, that kind of thing. It just wouldn't have been the same target market. And I judged that by the writing style, the photography, and the followers and how they're engaging. So that quality is really important there. Also have a look at their connection to other influencers. Are they respected? Are they known? Do a Google search of them and you'll generally find out a lot of information. I believe this is an amazing form of PR if you can get it right and if you do use it right. All right, so how else can we generate good PR? Well, from our customers is a really key way to generate good PR, and it's hugely valuable, but you have to engage with them. And also to get good PR from them, you have to have good customer service. So a key thing that we know from our consumers is that 88% of people are influenced by reviews and online comments. So they're influenced by the shared media space. So first of all, think about, with your business, do you know what people are saying about you online? And are you a part of that conversation? I had a really interesting case of this yesterday. I was working with a business and I asked them if they had Google, had many Google reviews and if they were responding to them. She didn't know. So we had a look and she had something like 55 reviews sitting there on an unclaimed Google listing. So that's a really missed opportunity. You've got people reaching out to this business. They were 4.5 stars. So it was really positive. People reaching out to this business, trying to engage, probably a lot of key information in those reviews, thanking them. It could be for different staff members, different products or services, but they weren't part of that conversation. So that's really, really important to keep in mind. Have a look at all the ways that people can review your business, and it could be Facebook, it could be Google, it could be a range of different ways that they can leave reviews. Make sure that you are a part of that conversation. Keep in mind that social pressure can really tarnish your branding just as quickly as you grow it, and fingertips really are always on the move. So a key factor of PR is that you are there to join that conversation. So no matter whether we're waiting in line and a little bit disgruntled about service, or there's a major issue, we can let our friends know on Facebook, or we can even let brands know on other social media channels. We can review immediately. No business is perfect, so I believe that virtually everyone in any industry will have to deal with a negative review and or customer complaints at some point. So you have to keep in mind that handling complaints and how you handle complaints in a face-to-face basis and online is really important, and it will make all the difference to your social media and to your online PR. So there are some reasons that we don't handle complaints very well. A key reason is that we're too busy. So we're too busy, and therefore the complaint is created because we're busy running around. And you see this a lot in an F&B situation, or any other business that's flat out busy, and you don't have the time to handle that complaint well. Another reason that we don't handle complaints well is being defensive or trying too quickly to come up with a solution. Now, we also see that online where a customer might say, put a review on that is a complaint, and then the company will come straight back with a defensive response. So as an outsider, I'm 88% of people are influenced by the reviews and online comments that they see. So I go on, I see this, I see there's a complaint, I see that the company was defensive and didn't want to deal with the complaint. So there's my judgment right there. So just being defensive can be really a key, it can really ruin a situation online. And it's really, you have to keep in mind that when you are responding to complaints online, that you are doing so in front of a massive audience. So you have to be very diplomatic and not defensive at all in that sense. People can handle complaints poorly, I guess you could say, because they're not trained properly. So make sure that whoever's looking after your reviews and or complaint handling on a face-to-face sense is trained to do so. They know what their level of empowerment is in terms of how they can solve a problem. They've got clear procedures and there's no room for a procedural breakdown, and they're able to really effectively turn a complaint around. So handling complaints poorly can have a very, very serious impact on your shared media. And result in some really serious negative PR. So we see it blow up quite quickly online. So just think about, and I mentioned right at the beginning, you have to really be there in that online space and know where your online reviews are and have alerts set up so that you are actively responding to reviews in a very quick time frame, so that things don't blow up. We see it a couple of times, and you often see it on Perth Now and those kind of sites where it could be something as simple as a bad dish at a restaurant and someone posts it online, and then someone else gets on board and posts something else, and all this stuff is happening before the business has even stepped in, because perhaps they hadn't seen the reviews. So if the business has stepped in straight away and offered to rectify the situation, apologize, or done something, these things tend to not go too viral or blow up. So definitely train your staff to sort issues prior to the customer leaving your venue, your office, your establishment. Look for signs and cues of people. It's the quiet ones that I believe that you've got to watch. So make sure that your customer service standards are really high level in a face-to-face environment, or even over the phone, or depending on your business, but so that things don't go online and affect your shared media space. So thinking about that, think about how you can help to bring positive PR from your customers. So negative PR we can address through great customer service, through effective complaint handling. Positive PR we really want to draw out of people. So there's 3 elements to engaging with your customers on social media, and they are to listen, to talk, and to support. And they are all interlinked. So first of all, to listen. There are tools that you can use for social monitoring. So you can track mentions, you can track your competitors, you can follow hashtags, that kind of thing. You can have a look at your own Google reviews, your own Facebook reviews. You could be on TripAdvisor, it could be Booking.com, it could be Zomato, a range of different places that consumers can leave reviews. Make sure that you are listening to each and every review and not missing out on anything. Then make sure you're there to talk. So talk back to the people that are leaving reviews. Talk offline, in person with people. Engage with your customers to make sure that they are happy. Engage with them online to both rectify any situations, but to really draw out of them more information about your business and those positive reviews. Talk with pictures, talk with media releases, talk to them offline when they're with you, and offer to continue the conversation online. So get them to include you in their conversation online as well, so that you can continue to talk to them. But to do that, you have to support them. So you have to direct people to your social channels where they can talk to you. So you need to provide links to your social media wherever possible, whether that's on, in your actual establishment. You might have signs to say, connect with us on the various social media channels that we're on. It could be on your email footers, on your website. Make sure that you're telling people the channels that you're active on, so that they know where they can talk to you, and you can then listen and talk back. So make sure, you're advertising those social media channels, or they've got a mechanism for how and where they can leave feedback. Make sure that you make that easy for them to find, and that then interlinks. So you support them, they can talk, you can listen, you can talk back. It's all very much connected. Now, even if you're doing everything perfectly well, a crisis may strike, and you need to really get through it as effectively as possible. But a key thing in terms of crisis is really having a plan before a crisis strikes. Now, the reason that we need to have a crisis plan really comes down to a crisis can strike at any time. Now, it could be something COVID related and an outbreak at your establishment. It could be an incident or an accident. It could be absolutely anything. It could be a major customer service fail that ended up going viral. So there are a number of different things. Obviously, no business likes to think that there will ever be a crisis, but a lot of times there actually will be. So you need to keep that in mind. Have that plan before a crisis strikes. Make sure you identify a spokesperson. So who is it that is going to be speaking to the media? And make sure it's only that person that speaks to the media. You need to be timely in terms of providing information to the media. Always be honest, open, and transparent as well. You can't hide anything because, as we know how empowered consumers are and the public is, there will always be someone that thinks they know or knows part of a story. So it's really important that as a business, you are timely, honest, open, and very transparent. Also keep in mind, as part of your plan, you have to keep your employees and your stakeholders up to date and informed of what's going on. You have to communicate with your customers and your suppliers. Now, this could be your future customers and your existing suppliers, and let them know what's going on. Make sure you update early and often as well. So get to the media before they start writing their own story themselves. So that's really important. Like we said earlier, the media will generate stories first and fact check later, or they won't fact check at all, and they'll rely on consumers to join the conversation and correct them. So it's pretty interesting in that sense. So updating early and often can kind of nip that in the bud quite a bit. Don't forget social media and traditional media. So it might be that you need to, put some information online as well as connecting with traditional media. Now, I have been involved in a couple of crisis situations throughout my career. Now, none of them have been expected, but in two of the three cases, we had a really strong plan in place, and it really saved the brands that I was working with. One of them was my own business, and it was not anything to do with our business. But there was an accident with a similar aircraft, but it was thought that it could have potentially been our business. So in terms of updating early and often, I was aware of the accident, not anything to do with our business. I contacted the media straight away and gave them the information to take our name out of it. So just that alone, so I didn't have to go through the whole process of updating employees and stakeholders and customers and suppliers and that kind of thing, but I just updated early, and that saved a potential crisis from coming our way. So keep in mind those kind of things. Definitely have a plan. We hope that you'll never have to use it, but absolutely have a plan just in case. All right, so we've just about come to the end of the webinar, and I really do hope that it's given you a greater understanding of PR from the paid, the earned, the shared, and the owned elements, and that you're more confident to be able to build your brand across all areas, and that you will do something across all areas. But my top tips to build your brand are always factor in this peso model. So don't leave any component out. Media releases, I believe, are very important, and I think you should craft compelling stories on new and what interesting things that happen in your business as often as you can, but aim for a target for at least a few per year. In those media releases, you can promote your expertise and that of others in your business. You can do that through media releases. You can do it in your owned, your earned, and your shared media, but I really think making it personal helps. I think tell your story or the story behind your brand to as many people as you can, particularly in small business. It is interesting. There would be a person and people behind your brand. So I think that to really promote your expertise and just share your story does really well from a PR perspective. For cheap and effective PR, I would consider sponsorships or participating in charitable or community events or donations, that kind of thing. They can be great exposure as long as they're relevant to your industry or to your business. And the key thing is that the audience has to match yours. So let's say you can do some kind of in-kind donation. You can give a certain number of vouchers in exchange for exposure. It's really important that the exposure that you're receiving is to the exact same audience of people that would generally buy your product or service. So that is hugely important. If you get that right, any kind of sponsorship or donation can be hugely valuable for your business. Reach out to influencers in your industry, but do your research and know who those influencers are. Spend time following them, following their story, and making sure that they're actually right for you. But also use Google Alerts to track what's being said about you online. So you can set these up in your Google account. You basically choose keywords that Google will report on. So once they're set up, you'll get a notification each time, and that comes via email, each time those keywords appear online. So in saying that, make sure those keywords that you select are specific, but look at your brand name, look at your competitors' names, look at other keywords or key terms that are specific to your business or your industry. And it's really great to see what comes through. Sometimes there's PR that's happening in and around your brand that you're not even aware of. So those Google Alerts are fantastic for tracking that kind of thing. Also tracking your competitors. All right, well, that's it from me. If anyone has any questions, I'm going to stay online now to answer them. We have just scratched the surface today. There is a lot more that we could really expand on. Now, if you want to know more, you can certainly book a one-on-one appointment. Just keep in mind that this program, as it stands at the moment, will conclude on the 30th of June. A modified version of it will be released from 1st of July. So I would encourage you to get in and book your one-on-ones as soon as possible to try and make use of the last of this particular program. But thank you so much for joining me today. If you have any questions, I'll stay online now and please shoot them through. Otherwise, I hope we get to chat again soon. Thanks again.